show where we believe you can grow in all 6 aspects of health. We share tips every Wednesday to help you grow in your physical, mental, spiritual, social, obviously your financial, and your intellectual health. Today, we are focusing on how to improve your intellectual health regarding reading, something that many of us may not do anymore. If you've never seen Millionaires Are Made, this is the show built on the fundamental beliefs that every person you meet knows something you don't, and there's something to learn from everyone in this big, beautiful world. Today, I'm here at the brand new Blackbeard's Castle in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. It's getting built right now, so it's kind of a cool place to be able to do this show at. I'll give you a quick little tour. At the end of the show, I'll give you a better one as well. Here at Millionaires Are Made, we're on a mission to help the world grow into the healthiest, happiest millionaires in all 6 aspects of health. And to do that, we went out and got 3 awesome guests to give you 3 awesome tips on how to improve your intellectual health regarding reading for today's episode. We love to keep it as real as possible and remove all bias. Therefore, we do not talk about tips or advice with our guests before they go on the show. So when they announce their advice live right now, it's going to be the first time that I hear it as well. Audience, this is an interactive show. We highly encourage you to comment and ask questions. And we will ask them live to our guests so you can get your answers right away. If you want to be a guest or have a topic idea, we're dropping the link right now. We always love topic ideas. There's so many topics out there. We want to know what you want to hear. And we, as you know, we believe everyone has something to share. So come on down, be a guest. It's really easy, and we all want to hear about it. Dun. I'm going to skip a lot of our usual stuff. I'm in travel mode. So next up, we're going to just do our sponsors real quick. This episode is brought to you by, Sarah Jones. Amazing. Sarah used to be very unhappy in her marriage and her debt and decided to erase everything, went and found out and studied and researched how to be a financial coach and how to improve her marriage. And now her and her husband travel to the U.S. in a 75-foot RV and teach others, small businesses, couples, and individuals, great, healthy money habits. Our next sponsor is Biz by Right, the matchmaking service for people who love buying and selling businesses. They find cash flowing deals, vet them with AI wizardry, and connect buyers and sellers faster than you can say due diligence. Woohoo! Check out bizbyright.com. Our next sponsor is Brian Parana. Brian is a husband, a father of 4, and founder of The Call to Rise, where he focuses on helping busy men reclaim their health, energy, and confidence through simple, sustainable systems that fit real life. And our final sponsor for this episode is Brian Wright, who's an amazing guy. If you are looking to publish your book, or if you've been talking about a book for 15 years and have not done anything yet, go check out Brian. He'll get your brand in front of high-level entrepreneurs and personal growth leaders. Reach out to him at Ultimate Achievers Magazine, where he can publish your content there as well. And a quick shout out for some of our followers. Facebook, Tiffany Patterson, thank you so much for your follow. Instagram, Charles Cannon. TikTok, Goddess Gabby, and YouTube, Kim Larson. You guys are awesome. Thanks for the support. If you want to be shouted out, just follow us. And now that I've said all my stuff in this very public area with a cruise ship tour going on and an awesome castle, I think it's time we bring out our first guest. First, we have one of our favorites, a returner, Samir. Samir, tell us, who are you?
Hey, Austin, it's good to be back. Yeah, my name's Samir Dasani. I'm a health coach and now an unofficial PhD. I finally got the word that my dissertation has passed, so that's going to happen soon. And yeah, I help people.
PhD.
There you go.
Congrats.
I help people overcome chronic illnesses through simple lifestyle and dietary changes.
And you do a great job. Thank you, Samir. Samir, I've got a question for you, not regarding health this time. If I wanted to improve my intellectual health with reading, what tiny piece of advice would you give me?
I mean, I think in today's day and age, you said it at the beginning, a lot of us are just not reading. And to be honest, there's a lot to be learned from books. And for those of us who grew up, I grew up in the 80s, you know, there's a lot of TV around, but I also had strict parents who didn't let me watch as much TV as, you know, a 6-year-old me may have wanted. So you can really, you can learn a lot, even from books that you think, you know, maybe it's just fiction, maybe it's just light reading, but it's really, really important. So the simple tip is just get out a book. I would say physical is better than your Kindle or your iPhone or whatever. But if you want to keep it free, you can download books. You can download millions of books for free by now, and just read 5 minutes a day just to get started.
5 minutes a day, exactly. Yeah. I agree with you that physical is way better. I never got on that Kindle craze. I don't know. I just don't. I feel like I'm not a big fan of it. Well, Samir, where did you learn this advice on your life journey?
Yeah, like I said, I've always kind of been a reader from a very, very young age. I was sort of immersed in books. Although in the beginning, I wasn't like. Later on, I was kind of a bookworm, and you can tell because I have a PhD that I took reading pretty seriously. But in the beginning, it wasn't all about reading, right? I was also a sporty guy. I was doing like competitive swimming. I was doing pretty good soccer at a high level as a kid. But reading was always part of my life. You got to sort of keep it real. You got to know what's going on. And there's so much, from my perspective, there's just so much we can learn from the generations that have come before us. And where did they document all their stuff? They documented it in books. And of course, later on, when I did my first degree in philosophy, I mean, I was reading pretty heavy stuff: Hegel, Marx, Kant, German philosophy, German sort of epistemological philosophy. And in order to understand those things, you don't just have to read them, you have to sort of spend time with those guys, really, really try and understand it, try and digest it, interrogate the text. That's a whole different skill. But just begin by just reading.
Yeah. So, wow. I guess maybe we'll talk about this more in the round robin, fiction versus nonfiction and reading. But do you do any fiction reading at all?
I do. I have my couple of favorite writers. To be honest, I'm one of those people who can like, I read the same stuff again and again. Like I probably read Tolkien stuff, I don't know, 20 times or something. And there's I have a favorite author, fiction author, who writes something called historical fantasy, I think is what he calls it. Guy Gavriel Kay.
I've heard of.
Yeah, you've heard of it from me on a previous show, I expect. Um, so
Ah,
so
that would be
yeah,
it.
so I still love to read. He has a new book that I have yet to purchase, but I still love to read his stuff. It's super cool. Just imagining real world events through the lens of fiction. It's so much fun.
Yeah, that is kind of a cool way to tell history
Yeah.
too. Um, yeah, I'm gonna have to get into that. That's kind of fascinating. Awesome, Samir. Thank you so much. We're gonna move on to our next guest. Next up, we have Kelly. Kelly, tell us, who are you?
My name is Kelly Morgan. I am a mom, an entrepreneur, I'm a recruiter, and currently, right now, I am working on building up my business, which is Bright Headed Publishing, which my mission is to help underrepresented voices get their words out there.
All right. So publishing for, oh man. All right. I have so much to talk about with this. Let's keep it all right, let's keep it to the questions. We'll get more in the round robin. Kelly, if I wanted to improve my intellectual health with reading, what tiny piece of advice would you give me?
I would tell you to not think of reading as a chore, as so many of us do. There's so much that you can gain from reading, and it doesn't have to be a book. You can read an article, you can read if they don't make newspapers anymore, but back in the day, the newspaper, there's magazines. I read all the time, so I read everything because I'm a writer as well. So I think words are important. I don't really I get wanting to see, but when you can read, that's when you get the opportunity for your imagination to shape the story. And I think that's something that's missed today, is the opportunity to really kind of read the story and you shape what it looks like in your mind versus maybe watching it on a screen.
Oh, that's a good point. I like that. All right, Kelly, where on your life journey did you learn this piece of advice?
I learned this very young when I realized that words could take me to places that I had never been before. Very young. I was one of those nerds kids that was always in the library at school. And that's when, back in the day, when we had to learn the Dewey Decimal System. I don't know if I'm dating myself, if anybody knows what that is. But back in the day, you had to learn the Dewey Decimal System to get
I
to the
know. I
library.
know.
And I just learned that words and books could take me to places that television at the time could not. And so I just learned very young that words were powerful. Words are so powerful. And when you learn that and you learn to appreciate them, it can take you places you've never even imagined before.
Yeah, that's huge. It's Oh man, we're gonna have such a good round robin. I can't wait. But yeah, reading is it's crazy. I so when I was a kid, my parents used to always I don't even know what they would joke about, but I used to have like a book in every car that my parents would drive, brothers would drive, and like every room of the house would have a different book, and I would just start reading wherever. And they were like, "How the fuck do you do that?"
That's how we were. My
And
mom was
obviously
like
ADD
that.
had a large part in that. Yeah,
My mom was
if
a
I didn't have
reader.
ADD, that probably wouldn't have happened. But
My mom was the kind of
go ahead.
parent that had the Reader's Digest, and we had the highlights, and we always had stuff around to read. We read all the time, and
Yeah,
so I was always one where when my kids were small, I wanted them to enjoy reading, so reading to them was important too. Being read to, I love being read to. I love somebody just closing my eyes and being able to formulate the story, but I love to read out loud to people as well. It's just there's just something that you can just get swept up that you just can't get. I just truly believe this from a screen. Just words are just those things that we need. We use them all the time. We just don't realize how much they're powerful when when you're reading them on paper.
yeah, that's fascinating. Awesome. All right, well, we're gonna move on to our next guest. Good talking, Kelly. We will get you back out on the round robin, and I have a feeling already this show is gonna take a while. But we'll see you in just a few minutes. Next up, we're gonna bring out Danny. Danny, tell me, who are you?
Well, I am Danny Brissell. My last name's really easy to remember how to spell. It's spelled like Bras Cell. No, I never took any grief over that as a child. And it's ironic, I'm now considered America's leading reading ambassador because I grew up hating reading. My father was a librarian. I always hated the public library. The furniture was always uncomfortable. It smelled funny to me. There was always an elderly woman telling me to be quiet. And there was always a freaky homeless guy. I thought he was a vampire hanging out by the bookshelves. And it wasn't until I started teaching in the inner city in South Central Los Angeles where I saw a lot of my students didn't have the advantages I had growing up. And I said, shame on me. And so I became impassioned to get kids to love reading because I find schools do an adequate job of teaching kids how to read. But the question I always ask people is, what good is it teaching a kid how to read if they never want to read? I teach kids why to read because
Oh,
I've
okay.
never had to tell a kid, go watch TV. I've never had to tell a kid, go play a video game. And I never want to have to tell a kid, go read. I want them to choose to do it because they love it. And there's simple strategies I share with parents on how to get their kids to love reading.
I think that's a great, great point. Yeah, you never have to tell anyone how to go watch video games or go watch TV. And yet somehow reading is going to be, every study in the world shows reading is going to help you a lot more than a video game. Um, Fascinating. All right. I have an important question for you then. If I wanted to improve my intellectual health regarding reading, what tiny piece of advice would you give me?
Well, our research is actually very clear on this. It doesn't matter what you read. What matters is how much you read. It doesn't matter if you're reading James Joyce or James and the Giant Peach. People who read more read better. And so my strategy for people is read what you want to learn more about. So if you're an entrepreneur, you should be reading entrepreneur books. If you want to learn how to quilt, then read a quilting magazine or a quilting book. But the research is very clear on this. I always tell parents, the little boy who only reads Captain Underpants is going to become a better reader than the little boy who refuses to read anything. Captain Underpants is the gateway drug to Shakespeare, but we got to get people hooked first. And I find even a lot of adults who don't read, the reason they don't read was because they were forced to read things that they didn't want to read. And so that would be my number one strategy for everybody is choose what you want to read.
There's so much to read. How do you know what you want? All right. Tell me where on your life journey you learned this tip. Where'd you learn your advice?
I learned it from working with kids. I had a little boy when I was teaching second grade, Kiara, and Kiara's first grade teacher told me, Kiara don't know nothing. I'm like, well, thank you for that. Well, Kiara, who didn't know nothing, came into my class one day and said, hey, Mr. Brissell, you see Barkley last night? He had 18 points and 16 rebounds. I'm like, thank you, Kiara, because from that point forward, every day after lunch, I'd sit Kiara on my lap. We'd read the LA Times sports page together. And guess what? By the end of the year, one of my best readers, and all that kid ever read about was sports. And so it really showed me that the way you get people interested in reading is finding things that interest them.
Fascinating. All right. I think it's time. We're going to bring everyone out. We have a lot to talk about. Thank you so much, Danny. Let's bring Kelly and Samir back out. Oh, I don't like that at all. That's a terrible round robin. I screwed things up. Well, that's how it goes. Sometimes I screw things up. Anyway, Samir, remind us what your tip
Just
was.
get out something and read 5 minutes of it per day.
5 minutes per day. What are your thoughts on that, Kelly?
I agree. I read all the time, so I think 5 minutes per day. Then it just doesn't seem overwhelming. So I agree with that.
And what are your thoughts, Danny?
Yeah, Samir's right on the ball. The more you read it, the more you're turning it into a habit. It's a healthy habit. So I would encourage. The research shows that if you can do 20 minutes a day, you'll be in the top 10% of the planet.
Top 20%, 10 minutes, 20 minutes a day or 10 minutes,
20 minutes
a
a
day?
day.
So that's like roughly 10 pages, 15 pages,
It depends on
8 pages.
Depends on your pace.
Depends on how quickly you read, man.
Danny, how fast are you reading?
Well, I have one of the top reading book clubs online. So I get sent about 5,000 books every single year. And people always ask me, geez, how do you read that many books? And I always like to quote the former NFL commissioner, Paul Tagliabue, when he was retiring. They said, what are you going to do? He said, well, I'm going to read a lot more than the first and last chapters to books. So it just, I mean, I read a lot quicker when I'm actually interested in what I'm reading.
So you read the first chapter, see if you're interested. If not, just the last chapter.
Reading a good book is like eating a piece of food. If you don't like the first bite, put it down and get something else.
Fascinating. How many books do you think you read in a year?
Several hundred.
Several hundred. Wow. Crazy. And do you read mostly fiction or nonfiction as well?
Well, because of the book club, I have to read all kinds of things. So there is at one point, I had a lot of women were asking me for cookbooks, and so you'd catch me on a flight reading a Paula Deen cookbook. So it just depends on what people are interested in. My favorite things to read are always personal development books and biographies. Right now, I'm reading a wonderful biography on Walt Disney by Neil Gabler.
Nice. Nice. Awesome. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about this. We talked about how reading is obviously better. Are you guys all anti-Kindle, or do you guys think that Kindle is just as good as a physical book?
I don't know if it's just as good, but it's certainly better than nothing. So the problem we have with sometimes is just kids aren't used to, like, they're used to iPhones and iPads and that kind of stuff, and they're just not used to physical books. So I'd rather get them on a Kindle or even a Kindle app than nothing. You know what I mean? That's it. I mean, I'm not anti anything. I use Kindle. I use audiobooks. I haven't used Kindle in a while, but I have in the past. I use whatever I got, man, because I've also been in places where, I used to have a job where I was traveling maybe 300 days of the year, and I couldn't, take 200 books with me. So everything was on the phone or the iPad or whatever, or the computer. So I've been there, man. I've done all that stuff, and it's not bad. It's not as good. I do prefer the tactile experience of an actual book, but that's life.
Yeah, I would agree.
I wonder if that's just because we're old and used to the hard books.
I mean, there is some data showing that when you actually have physical books, your ability to retain information is a little bit better. Not a lot better, but definitely at least a little bit better. So, and for some people, it will be a lot. These things are a spectrum. So I think there is evidence to suggest having a physical book is better. But again, I'm not comparing. There's a saying we say as health coaches: never let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Yeah. If we can get someone reading on a Kindle or on a phone, cool. That's a start.
I agree. For me, it was always about sensation. I love the feel of a good book. I like the flipping of the pages. I like the rustling of a newspaper. For me, reading was always, there was always that kind of sensation that went with it. When I think about reading, those are the memories that I have. I miss the rustle of a good newspaper.
All right, we've got a question from the audience. How do you choose which book you're going to read next? Oh, Danny, you go first.
Well, I always listen to what people are recommending. It's a great conversation starter. When people want to talk politics with me, I'm like, well, that's pretty boring. Why don't you tell me what you're reading right now? And so, I think one of the best things I learned from teaching kindergartners was I had read The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt by Edmund Morris. And they say by the time he was 30 years old, Teddy Roosevelt had read over 20,000 books. And my kindergartners would go, wow. I'm like, so we got to read 10 books a day. I mean, many of the books I read are scratch and sniff and pop up, but I do read at least 10 books a day. I think we overlook children's books. They're some of the best, actually the best lessons out there. So I'll read anything and everything, but I usually get my book recommendations from other people. So I have a conversation starter.
That's so fascinating. And can you shout out what your book club is again, just so everyone knows?
It's called lazyreaders.com. So every month I give you 10 book recommendations, 3 or 4 adult level, 3 or 4 young adult level, and 3 or 4 children's level books, all under 250 pages. So you have something you can read when you're stuck in a doctor's office or you say you have no time to read. Anybody can read 250 pages.
Lazyreader.com. Fantastic. And Samir, you've written a couple of books?
Yeah, just the one, man. I need to work on the second one so now that the PhD dissertation is done, I need to turn that into a book. But I mean, you spoke of 20 minutes of reading. I mean, this book, I've known people who read it in about 20, 25 minutes. It's not a long read, The Health Dialectic. And it's sometimes you can find a book like that, a short book that really changes your life. And certainly that's some of the feedback I've got.
And Kelly, have you written your book a book yet?
I've written 2 books and I'm working on a children's book.
Oh, fascinating. Look at all you guys just crushing it. Yeah, all right. It's funny. I'm going to have to start getting into more fiction. I like the historical fiction idea. All right, looks like we got some more questions from the audience. Oh, that's a great one. What is a book that changed your life or your perspective in the right ways?
Does it have to be in the last year?
Anytime, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to give the real answer because it's too weird. But there's a book I'm reading right now, which is a biography of a guy called Jan Smuts. Jan Smuts was a leader here in South Africa. He led the sort of people of Afrikaner Dutch descent in a war against the British. And then he went on to become a super important person in the British Empire. He was really influential in the Treaty of World War I, et cetera, et cetera. So the interesting thing about this book is it's written by his son. And so once you know that it's his own son who is writing the biography, then you can look through that lens. You try and understand what was the son's perspective of the father. And it is super easy. It's super interesting to do a kind of psychological study of what was going on at that time. It was also written about 100 years ago, right? So it's super interesting to sort of look at these historical contexts, family contexts, psychological contexts, and you learn a lot.
Anyone else want to take that question?
Well, there's been a lot for me. I mean, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams was the first book where I had to put it down because I was laughing so hard. And that was a great lesson for me because it taught me that books don't have to be lame, because at school, they always forced me to read things I did. I mean, when I was in high school, my teacher required us to read the Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. And no offense to people that love the Scarlet Letter, but the book is about Hester Prynne commits adultery. And so she's forced to wear an A on her chest. And I raised my hand in class and said to my teacher, I said, can I wear a B on my chest? Because I'm so bored reading this book. And it taught me an important lesson. If you really want people to read and be avid readers, just figure out what they're interested in and get them reading what they want to read.
Interesting. I don't know. For me, when I was in high school, when I was in my AP English classes, we were on doing Mark Twain. And when we had to read Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn, I was told to leave the room because of the content. And I was sent to the library, where I was then devoured all other books just because the teacher felt very uncomfortable using the vernacular in these books, which was really mind-blowing that we were teaching these books. But I couldn't stay in the room because they felt uncomfortable. But that's what the class learned. I, however, went downstairs and read all of Canterbury Tales, which I love. I read a bunch of fairy tales, so Brothers Grimm, Canterbury Tales, books like that. I would get lost in the library while my English class was reading Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer. That to me really was a telling point of how words can really kind of change people's opinions and really help me figure out that words are powerful, even the words that we may not want to use.
Fascinating. We've got another question from the audience we're going to go with. What's the best biography you've read so far in your life?
Mine by far was Malcolm X. That's probably one of my favorite books. I've read that book over and over again. I find his entire life completely fascinating. And I often wondered how the world would be if he would have survived, because he was on to something, but I think that he was cut short. And just knowing that he dictated most of that stuff to Alex Haley is just fascinating to me. It's one of my favorite books.
Did you, Kelly, did you read Manning Marble had a sort of take on that a little while ago? Like, I'm old, 10, 15 years ago. Did you read Manning Marble's book on Malcolm?
You know what? I picked it up a while ago, but I have never finished it. People have told me about it because they know that I'm really into the autobiography. But now that you've mentioned it and you're bringing it to my attention again, I'm going to pick it up again. You're not the first person that has mentioned that to me.
Yeah, super cool. It's definitely worth checking out. Different perspective because, you know, his critique of the autobiography of Malcolm X is that it's told to, sorry, I'm forgetting the writer, the guy who wrote Roots.
Alex Haley.
Yeah, Alex Haley, right? And Alex Haley, in his opinion, put his own spin on things. And because, you know, Malcolm died before the book came out, there was no fact checking. So anyway, it's a different perspective we're checking out.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely check it out because you're not the first person that's mentioned that. So thank you for bringing that to the forefront again for me.
Cool.
Whew. I guess you have your next book there.
I do.
All right, audience, last chance for questions. We're gonna start working on the last thing we got to do today. This is called our daily challenge. We must come up with a task and/or series of tasks that help you improve your intellectual health with reading. This must take less than 5 minutes a day, cost $0, and be available to anyone in the world. What ideas do you guys have?
I think we've already said it. Pick up a book for 5 minutes. You can make it last thing before bedtime, first thing in the morning. Doesn't really matter.
Pick up a book.
Should we make that the challenge?
Or even a magazine. It doesn't have to be a book. It could be a magazine. It could be anything as long as you're reading. That would be my advice.
Yeah, I agree with Kelly. I say that you are what you read, so read good stuff. So my challenge would be read something positive for 5 minutes a day, whether it's a magazine, a book, positive social media. Block out the negativity.
Yeah, I don't know about reading social media. That's going to be tough, right, Danny?
Oh, there's all kinds of great social media feeds. You just have to find the I mean, there's people out there that are posting positive quotes and positive stories. There's a feed I read on Twitter. The guy every single day lists the movie and gives you the history of the movie and how it was made. It's fascinating.
Okay, cool. All right. So you got some positive ways to read on there. All right. Well, I mean, that sounds like an easy challenge, but also very helpful. I was trying to think of how to make it easier, but realistically, everyone can read, and that's really easy to read. Everyone's got something somewhere that they can read. And I like that you added in the positivity. That's super smart. Anything anyone wants to add before we wrap up this episode?
Only that you promised to give us a tour of that swimming pool area.
Yeah, okay. Well, if we have the daily challenge done, I guess let's go do a little tour of Blackbeard's. So Blackbeard's here in St. Thomas is one of our fun partners. This is an old, sorry guess, but I'm gonna put you guys away just because it looks weird on this. That'll look a lot better. So this is Blackbeard's Castle. It's been around for like 200 years. It is not even open yet. It just got remodeled. It's going to have about 16 rooms, and this is the pool. Here is the view. Right over St. Thomas Harbor. There's a little Disney cruise line. And this is where I'm going to be shooting shows probably like once a month coming here. Super cool spot, super historic. They just had a tour. One of the cruise ships had a little historic tour about the history of Blackbeard's Castle. It's been closed for like pretty much since the hurricanes in 2017. So kind of cool to have that. Yeah, thank you guys so much for being on. We're going to wrap this show up. I believe we have no more questions. Let me just double check. Yeah, awesome.